Yes.
Good evening. Very nice to be with you tonight.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, Mr. Wood.
I hope
But
you.
in India, we are still like morning part of day. Maybe it's just 11:30, I think, here. 11:30 morning.
Oh,
Yes, yes.
it's all still ahead of you. I'm sure it'll be a wonderful day.
So yeah, we are just going to be live now. We are already live now and welcome everyone. Particularly, I really appreciate our Minister Michael Wood taking his valuable time to attend to this, and also to the Vice Chancellor, Pro Vice Chancellor, Mr. Ravindra Kulkarni. It is a great pleasure to invite you as our guest and as well to see what we can uncover with the new education policy that we are going to talk about. And I really appreciate Deepak Mukadam, who is just give you a little bit of introduction for him. Like we go since we were born, we can say that because we are childhood friends. And we went to Mumbai University, same university, did our education from that university. So a lot of memories. So it's good to connect and good to reconnect with him, but also education is quite passionate about education subjects. So I welcome you to my NZ World News channel, where we are going to have it's a positive approach that we would like to have each time on this news channel. So today I'll be hosting and with this show on education. So with further delaying, we can start this now. And I would, first of all, really once again appreciating your time, Mr. Kulkarni and Deepak Kumar, and also Michael Wood, who has given his valuable time to talk to us. And let's see what we can have a positive discussion on the education sector. I'm thrilled and excited when Deepak told me about the new NEP 2020 and Akademistan new policy created and initiated at the end of India. So I would like to start first with you, Mr. Ravindra Kulkarni. It's really it's a really pleasure to be here with you. We would like to ask you a few things about, first, let's talk about the NEP 2020. What exactly is that and how it's going to be benefiting to the overall education transformation that you call it, demystifying transformation of the education system. So let's talk about that. Can you throw some light on that?
Definitely. 10 minutes or
like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Yeah, you go ahead and I will stop you.
See, normally professors speak 45 minutes.
I know.
so accordingly, I will summarize the things. Basically, I was just looking at the educational scenario in New Zealand, and then I was comparing it with new education policy that is being drafted by our government of India and is being implemented.
Yeah.
So what I look at, various universities in New Zealand, like they combine many streams. They are multidisciplinary education systems. Like just University of Auckland, if you look at, they have research on medical as well as engineering, as well as in humanities, arts, science, likewise. So in fact, in our case, earlier it was a compartmentalization, in the sense that there were technical universities dealing with technical subjects separately, engineering subjects, or we had an health university dealing with only medical education. So the primary focus of the new education policy of India is to bring transformations from the multidisciplinary perspective. So all the educational institutions, including university and autonomous colleges, will be multidisciplinary in a sense that it will promote not only the intellectual capacity of an engineer, but at the same time it will promote him or her to be a ethical person, to be a right citizen who will think critically about the social issues as well. So in a sense, like it would like to have more focus on developing not only the cognitive capabilities like foundational as well as critical and problem solving attitude. So that kind of a cognitive abilities are supposed to be developed by higher education, but at the same time, so like social, emotional, ethical capabilities, attitude, approach are supposed to be developed. So probably there will be three kinds of the institutions since you probably minister, honorable minister would like to have lot of collaboration. So from that perspective, I'm just telling there will be three kinds of the institutions in India now. One is a research university. Okay, the primary focus would be on research, and then simultaneously they will be teaching. Then another part like teaching universities. Primary focus will be teaching, but will conduct simultaneously research in cutting edge areas. And then there will be autonomous degree granting colleges where the focus will be more on UG, undergraduate education and graduate education particularly. So one will have like multiple, one will have multiple multidisciplinary system where you will have a lot of respect for diversity because India, as you are well aware, is a country with diversity in terms of languages, in terms of religions, in terms of so many things. So having a good respect for diversity and respect for local context is probably the major area. And another part, like just to promote, like we are now recently our Prime Minister has talked about Atmanirbhar Bharat, like self-reliant India. And I think New Zealand is also looking for same thing. So we would like to have technologically self-reliant, and at the same time, we are the country with highest engaged population. So we'd like to see that this younger generation will be well equipped with in terms of the skills. They will be supported with National Research Foundation, who will provide a good support for technology development, incubation systems, new areas of learning, and likewise. So it is going to promote definitely outstanding research while keeping a deep pride in India. Okay, that's probably Indianness is probably because all of us are well aware, like primarily the education was established like given like the Britishers formulated a specific policy for education, and probably we went ahead with that policy for a long period. We would like to see that the education is really Indian one. So particularly, we are moving towards more faculty and institutional autonomy, so that individual universities, they would like to have collaborations with world-class institutions across the globe. Okay, naturally we are talking about top 100 universities across the world. So they are free to go for. The universities in India will be free to go for collaborations with world-class universities, so that right innovative system would have been well established. By 2030, like every district will have at least one multidisciplinary higher education institutions. So that's probably the aim, and probably we would like to see that the gross enrollment ratio in higher education crosses 50 at least by 2035. So that's a biggest aim, with more focus on vocational education and more holistic and multidisciplinary approach for higher education. So the universities will simultaneously have departments in languages, literature, music, philosophy, Indology, art, dance, theater, education, STEM, mathematics, statistics, pure and applied science, as well as engineering and medical as well. So this is in short, like probably I think Shailesh is looking for. So if he wish, I will stop here. Just only one point last, like because that is more important from the perspective of collaboration. we will have an academic bank of credits, meaning thereby whenever two universities, like one in foreign and the Indian university, they enter into an exchange, research exchange, academic exchange, then credit transfer would be allowed. So there will be an academic bank of credits. So a student pursuing, let us say, degree in one university and tries to have some credits from other university, that is now permitted under this new educational platform. And so there is lot of focus on digital education, the use of technology in the education itself, and internationalization is the main part. Just last point, that larger number of international students studying in India and greater mobility to students in Indian visit, study at, transfer credits to, or carry out research at institutions abroad, and vice versa is possible because of permission of internationalization of education in India itself, as per new education policy. I think I should.
So just on that, what you explained quite a bit of NEP 2020, what you are trying to envisage or visions that you have and the goals that you want to achieve out of this. What I just have one question to ask is the affordability, the accessibility for the students, and what you are trying to achieve is a quality education through the process of the digital IT scenarios and giving that access and affordability. Will that be a good opportunity for the kids in terms of affordability and accessibility because of the digital platforms you are using? I heard you called new age tools for teaching online and education online. That's where your focus is, it seems like.
Yes,
right?
definitely.
Okay. So in terms of that, what do you think would be more beneficial for New Zealand as such, which I'll come to now very soon, but that I would leave it to our Honorable Minister, Michael Wood, who would be throwing more light on that. So I would like to, first of all, introduce you to Michael Wood, as I didn't introduce at the start. But yeah, he has put many hats in his career as a minister and as a person that he has made a huge difference in the communities, particularly ethnic communities and Indian communities. Is quite well versed with that scenario. So, Michael, I would like to introduce you, but I have some sort of questions for you, and you feel free to ask some questions to our Indian counterpart, Chancellor, Professor, Pro Vice Chancellor Ravindra Kulkarni. You are free to ask him questions as well in terms of how we can develop the relationship between India and New Zealand from that point of view. So I give it to Michael to introduce himself more and tell more about him a little bit, and then he can go ahead with the questions that he would like to explore in this conversation. Michael, over to you.
Certainly, thank you, Shailesh. Namaste and kia ora koutou katoa, which is our greeting in Te Reo Māori that we give to people in New Zealand. It's lovely to be part of this dialogue with you, and very interesting to hear about the NEC and India's tertiary education system, which is not an area that I have great familiarity with. I'm very interested in the development of our own tertiary education system. I don't have a formal role in this area, but I'm very happy to feed through any dialogue to our Minister for Education, the Honourable Chris Hipkins, who is responsible for this area. I'm extremely interested in some of the things that you've said, but perhaps just first a few words about our system and how it's developing at the moment, some of the key challenges and objectives for our tertiary education system. It's fair to say that our system is fairly settled at the moment, but equally we're aware of the need to be constantly adjusting to changing circumstances and to be moving forward. We have 7 universities in New Zealand, They have a high degree of institutional autonomy, but we provide collaboration and channel funding and the government's strategic priorities through what's called the Tertiary Education Commission. So we have autonomous institutions, but we have a central body to provide a sense of strategy in what is, of course, a pretty small country. We need to actually bring all of our resources together in order to achieve the best outcomes for New Zealand. Separate to those universities, we have a network of polytechnics who provide primarily vocational education. But I suspect, a bit like India, there's often a little bit of a blend. Your institutions tend to do a little bit of both. They'll do a bit of vocational and a bit of research. But those vocational institutions are primarily focused on providing qualifications for people getting into vocational areas. That's the main area that we have a big piece of reform in at the moment. And we're picking up around about 30 or 40 different vocational educational institutions and bringing them together into one national structure at the moment, which is a major piece of work for us. And that's about making sure that those institutions are sustainable, about making sure that we don't have unnecessary duplication in what is a small country, and about making sure that we're better meeting the needs of both students and also industry. And our assessment has been that over a period of time, a very diffuse and competitive model has not served those needs very well. So we're providing a greater degree of coherence in that space. In terms of our universities, which are primarily our research, I mean, they're our research-led organisations, but they're also the providers of qualifications. They are teaching institutions as well, and it varies from institution to institution exactly what the balance is. They operate quite autonomously, but there's effectively a 5-year strategy that our Tertiary Education Commission puts in place every 5 years, and the current one is just coming to an end. And this strategy covers the entire system. And its key goals for the 5-year period, which has just come to an end, include better meeting the skills needed for industry, addressing the needs of at-risk youth. And this is a particularly important area for us. We have a group of young New Zealanders who we call the NEETs, the people who are not in education, employment or training. And we believe it's very important to be getting through to these young people to avoid a whole plethora of social problems that can occur if those people don't get into the system. There's a focus on Māori achievement and the achievement of our Pacific communities. And both of those communities are communities which traditionally have had a less equitable access to education. So that's something that we strongly want to address. There's a focus on adult literacy, on strengthening our research performance. And this is a very important area for us as we try to build up the side of our economy that's really going to drive prosperity in the future. And finally, we do want to make sure that our institutions grow their international links, and that's perhaps relevant to this conversation. We know that in the modern era, tertiary institutions need to be internationally linked to stay abreast of developments, to develop relationships, to share and collaborate. So that's a big focus as well. So that's a bit of an overview of where our system is at the moment. I was quite interested in the way in which you spoke before about how the NEC will effectively categorise institutions into, I think you said three types primarily: research universities, teaching universities, and the third I think you described as degree granting institutions. I wasn't quite clear on the difference between the second and third categories, and wondered if you might be able to speak to that a little further.
You would like. I think you have read our national education policy. That's really a matter of pleasure for us. You like to understand the difference between teaching university and degree granting colleges. Basically, what has happened earlier and even today, the universities are known to be affiliated universities. Like University of Mumbai, for example, like we have our own educational campus and plus more than 800 affiliated colleges. There's the college will carry education at their level, but will be monitored by university. The examinations will be conducted by university. So that was the affiliating system which currently India has. Now they want this affiliated colleges to be slowly given a graded autonomy, so that they will become autonomous degree granting institutions. So earlier degree was granted by university. These colleges will have degrees granted by themselves. So they will have a complete autonomous structure in that way. So that's how this degree granting college will focus mainly on undergraduate education. May have certain postgraduate, but they will more focus. They will have more focus on undergraduate education. So that's how degree granting institutions will work. While teaching universities will have focus on teaching plus some research in major areas. So that's how second and third are completely well separated apart. So by 2030, it is said that like within next 15 years, all such affiliated colleges, maybe like I think almost more than 8,000 to 9,000 colleges will be converted to degree granting colleges in next 15 years. So they will focus only on education, not on research. That's an idea.
Thank you. That's very helpful. The other thing I was very interested in from your comments earlier was your description of the shift to a more of a multidisciplinary approach. And I think this is something which in the New Zealand system has been gently happening for some time. And I think it's, while we still recognise that in certain areas it's important to have very deep and specific knowledge. You know, you want your medical professional to be an expert in that field, and you're not too worried about the other things so much, perhaps. But I think we have a recognition that, generally speaking, technological change and the future of work are increasingly going to demand that people do have wide skill sets rather than necessarily very specific knowledge that could well be outmoded in 10 or 15 or 20 years' time. And I wonder if those are the same drivers in the NEC for changes in your system. And I'm just also interested in your comments around how that will actually be instituted within different institutions, bearing in mind that I know that tertiary institutions often have very deep histories within their individual faculties. There could well be some resistance within the system to this kind of approach. Are you seeing or experiencing any of that?
See, like earlier, what was an issue? Like, say, for example, like a student pursuing engineering program. So he was completely isolated from the field of literature, music, or likewise. Now, it was a rigid curriculum-based system where engineering, for a, let us say, like a mechanical engineer would learn only subjects connected to mechanical engineering only throughout his program. Now, when I'm talking about multidisciplinary, we still have a specialization. We still the student has to take up education in deeper mode in one or two subjects. That's a definite understanding. But only thing, they will have now freedom to choose certain minor areas. Say, for example, like engineering student can choose music as minor subject, or a student studying literature, or student studying, say, languages, philosophy, will have to choose certain minor subjects from science area, because you are talking about skill-based education. So we need the students to have a necessary skills, maybe from the perspective of the job, but at the same time certain life skills as well. Okay, yeah, maybe from the perspective of communication, leadership, team spirit, time management, likewise. So in that way, say for example, we have a 4-year degree program which has multiple entry and exit options. So let us say, like if a student pursues say admission to the 4-year degree program, and at the end of first year, if he or she is willing to exit, then say it's okay, so it's accepted. He or she will be awarded certificate in that for that particular period. If he or she exits after second year, then he or she will be awarded diploma. If he or she exits at third year, then it will be UG degree, and for completion of the 4-year degree program will permit them to jump directly to the PhD program as well. So a 4-year degree program will form the basis of the research itself. So that's how probably the overall educational pattern in multidisciplinary academic institutions would be. I hope I have explained. If anything missing from my side, please, I just would like to add.
Yes, no, thank you. That was a very clear explanation of how that will work. The final question that I have, just based on the notes I made from your earlier comments, were that you said that one of the focuses of the NEP is a greater shift to digital as well. And I'm particularly interested to know whether the advent of COVID-19 this year and some of the changes that has forced on educational systems has perhaps accelerated some of that thinking. And I ask this question because here in New Zealand, it has the result of COVID-19 and some of the universities having to close their operations has been that for some courses, they have now effected a permanent shift to online learning for certain parts of their curriculum. And I'm wondering if there has been a similar experience in India as well.
Yes, definitely. It was the particular situation taught us many things. Pandemic forced us to close down our educational framework for almost 2 months. From 8 June onwards, we started again functioning, but in a phase-wise manner. And then we started talking about online education. Now the problem before us was that till then we had very less focus on online education. So that's teachers were used to for offline mode of education only, like face-to-face learning and teaching itself. So the 2 months like May, June, we utilized mainly for training teachers in the areas of the online education, because a teacher who is very good in offline teaching may not be so in online teaching. So that's how pedagogical training was very much essential. And those 2 months, May, June, were completely utilized only for training them. We train them in variety of the platforms, variety of the e-content tools, and we gave them hands-on experience. And that's how from August onwards, we started the online education. But only thing we just did not focus only on screen-based teaching, but we have said that one should have a lot of quiz sessions. One should undertake simulations so that laboratory practicals could have been demonstrated in an online mode, so that they will feel the experience of conducting practicals. So mainly said that online teaching, video uploading of the video lectures, then a lot of question answer sessions, quizzes, and regular assessment at a frequent intervals. That's how the online education has been framed by our university, and that's how now we are moving ahead. Now the problem before, New Zealand, I think has gone very good in terms of providing education through television channels. That's really, and I congratulate you for that, because that's really a good initiative. Because television channels eliminate at least one part, that is availability of the internet. Now in our case, we are yet to move towards television education based on television channels. We are still focusing entire education on internet bandwidth only. So that probably creating a problem for those students who do not have an access to internet. So what we now did, because so naturally it requires, the online education requires either a mobile with Android connections or probably a laptop. So those students who do not have either of these, for them that will be an issue. So slowly we are now creating that kind of an infrastructure. And television channel, of course, that's in our mind, but since the population is huge, probably fulfilling that will require some time. We are undertaking infrastructure development in that direction. But pandemic has definitely taught us. Online education, in fact, was supposed to be the connected part for fourth industrial revolution, like artificial intelligence and all related things. But somehow we took online education little late, because online education will provide the necessary skills which are essential for fourth industrial revolution. Now we are gearing up. We hope to see that we answer all the problems connected with digital media of education. We hope to see that we will have a technological support and well in good infrastructure development backing for the online education.
Yeah, yeah. So I was about to come to that anyway at a later stage, where how are you going to accessibility, affordability for all these students, which is 1.3 billion population, and if we are going towards the direction of that, how to educate everyone and with their affordability was, and with internet bandwidth dependent only on that is going to be a huge with cyber and everything. So we'll definitely, I'll touch on that a bit later. Now we'll go to our founder, Deepak Mukadam, who did this Academistan demystifying transformation of education. And just to give you a little bit background of Deepak, Deepak has put also like various hats in his career. He was a Senate member for 10 years, and he has been associated with the Mumbai University for quite a longer period. But he also is an entrepreneur. And so that's one of the key things which I wanted to highlight. Like when a person of entrepreneur stature comes into education sector, it does have a different perspective. But also he is also done budgets for the university, being a finance person and being a finance man. So that gives a more broader perspective of how you can accommodate finance, affordability, accessibility, and the benefits that he is trying to create to this, which I was just touching on that. Like, yes, you are more focused with this Academistan transformation of education. I feel that more you are focused on the teachers kind of thing, or what exactly it is. Can you just elaborate more on that, Mr. Deepak?
Yeah, good evening to Mr. Wood, Mr. Shailesh, and good morning to Dr. Kulkarni, sir. Yeah, the Academistan was launched last year, and since I was in the field of education, working very actively since last 3 years. In fact, I had a gap of some 5 years, but since 2000, I am into the field of education as a Senate member of University of Mumbai. I still recall, when I was a Senate member way back, some 10 years back, I had visited New Zealand. I still remember that my old experience of New Zealand. But I'll come to that part later. Coming back to the Academistan, what Mr. Shailesh wants to understand from me is, it is the NGO created by the teachers and for the teachers. Now we were discussing about the pandemic and its effect, and our sir was emphasizing on the new age tools on which we were going to work, and maybe this is by compulsion, not by choice, though it was a option given by the government at all levels to all countries in the past in the form of you can say artificial intelligence or machine learning or that sort. But pandemic has made it almost a compulsion for all the academicians too. And we being a very vast country, not necessarily we all are or our teachers are also technologically competent. So we at Academistan came up with a training program for these teachers, which was kept free of charge, and more than 8,000 teachers across the country, they registered for this program, and not a single state was left out. And I will be, it gives me pride to even inform you that, almost from 8 countries, the teachers had participated in this online program. So it is for uplifting all the teachers and enhancing the teachers' stature from whatever they are to the next level. And particularly with this pandemic, the online teaching, online learning is going to be the key word. And that was the first program at Academistan we came up with. Academistan, it is a teacher's repository. These days we are all in the world of technology and digital. And probably say, for example, if I am a mechanical engineer teacher, so I have a WhatsApp group of all my teaching colleagues, but they are restricted myself by they being from mechanical. I am not aware of any teacher who is a chemical engineer teacher. Probably we both teach in the same college or same university, but I have hardly any relations with those teachers. But under Academistan, it is going to be a teacher's repository, be it you are a mechanical, chemical, physical, botany, being a teacher of any stream, but you are part of Academistan. So it is going to be a big, huge teacher's repository, which is going to be created over a period of time. Basically, Academistan is for the teachers and to support the teachers. I can still continue maybe one more minute. The teachers, we want them to take up the research programs, and we would also over a period of time support the teachers to come up for their research program. We over a period of time we may approach the society for supporting these teachers who are trying to reach out to their research program. We can over a period of time come up with some financial support, financial aid. We will be a mediator sort of and supporting the teachers to complete their research program. So basically, Academistan is a not-for-profit organization under Section 8 in the Indian law.
Right. Okay. Now that's a brilliant initiative. So it's basically more looks like empowering the teachers and also engaging the teachers from different sectors and fields where they can interact, so they can at any given point of time, I feel that if they want to move on to another sector or another field, they could do it. Basically what you are trying to give them, that opportunity and options and interacting more, engaging the teachers, right? That I could see that. No, that's it. So what do you think in that terms, like transfer of teachers or transferable skills of teachers across the state or across the international country wise, where if we have a research and development teachers required, or for teacher who wants to go for PhDs and higher education and enhance them, then do you see anything benefit in terms of New Zealand being that they could come here for PhDs and for postgrads and all those kind of enhancement? Because New Zealand predominantly, I believe, and Michael can tell you a lot about that, but it's more, we are very good in terms of skill-based and training and everything to the teachers for enhancement, but also exporting the quality education has always been a good mark for us. So international students do come to New Zealand for various faculties and diversities. So from that point of view, I think it will be a good conversation to start to see what sort of postgrads or what sort of skill that they can come to New Zealand and they can take that or online education if we provide in terms of the export of education. What do you think, Michael, in that regard? Is there an opportunity for that kind of thing, that exporting our education to online?
Oh, look, there are always opportunities in these areas. There's obviously the short-term challenge we have in terms of COVID and the way that it's really led to national systems hunkering down a little bit while we get through this immediate crisis. But New Zealand has a very well-developed international education system, which is generally pretty well regarded. It's one in which we are relentlessly focused on driving higher standards on. And as a matter of policy for this government, we have been trying to shift the focus of our international education system from perhaps what could have in the past been described as going for a very sort of quantity over quality approach, where there was
Yeah.
an approach about getting as many students in as possible, but not necessarily having very high standards, to really driving the standards up and particularly focusing on what value can we as a relatively small but advanced economy and society offer, particularly with the higher education at level 7+. So that's an area that we're particularly keen to be developing. And look, most of our educational institutions who are involved in this space are pretty active in terms of developing their relationships with reputable institutes overseas. And I think that's the way to go. I've sat previously on the council of the Manukau Institute of Technology in Auckland, and I think the way to go really is for institutions in both countries, in this case New Zealand and India, but it could be other countries, to develop very high trust level relationships between each other, so that they can develop programs, they can look at ideas around exchanging students, and everyone can have a high degree of trust in the education that's been offered in different countries. And I think particularly in the digital space, there's huge potential there that we could be unlocking that isn't really been unlocked at the moment. Final thing I'll probably just say in this area is that for New Zealand, there's a great deal of interest in developing these sort of relationships and having an education sector that not only welcomes students into New Zealand, but also branches out and takes some of New Zealand's educational expertise to other countries. Now, a lot of that actually does get bound up in trade agreements, because you're talking effectively about whether New Zealand's education sector has access to other markets. And that just varies from country to country about where that's at and what's agreed. But even within the existing parameters, there is lots of room for collaboration and growing the sector. But the key point I'll just end on is the one that I started on, which is that for New Zealand, and particularly for our current government, it's about focusing on quality rather than quantity.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was wanting to see. Quality education must be affordable and accessible, but also with the trade policy, is there any room for, if we have some sort of policy with a collaboration or MOU as a free trade agreements with education related only, if that can be developed to just enhance our export education as well, and our importing other things from India as well, for in terms of education, in terms of courses and everything like that? What do you think?
Yes, well, that's one of the areas that New Zealand's always keen to develop when we develop either bilateral or multilateral trade agreements with other countries, is to be covering off the education sector. So that's just something that has to be dealt with in the course of those negotiations. But we're always keen to see that there are opportunities there to be sharing services.
Yeah, yeah. So, so coming back to our Chancellor, Mr. Kulkarni, hearing from all three of you, I would like to emphasize and see what are the measures, just like initiatives that you have taken for Academistan, Deepak, and then this NEP 2020, that you have come up with the transformation of Indian education, and where you might be looking for collaboration of universities worldwide, not just particularly NZ, but NZ, as I said, like we do have Indian students quite a bit, and it has always been, but as Michael pointed out, we are more focusing, and we should be more focusing on the quality education and the quality of students who genuinely wants to make a difference by taking that education and make inroads so that they can actually promote that kind of academic values. And as you said, Mr. Kulkarni, about the ethical and morals and all those that you would like to teach, not just education in terms of reading the book, but also understanding the book. That's what I see. So just from that point of view, what do you see, what are the courses that you could inter-exchange or exchange programs can be developed in terms of, education that can come through NZ and India, with particularly Mumbai University being highly regarded in the international area compared to, there are many universities. So India has got many universities, not like New Zealand. We got only 7 universities. but you got huge amount of universities. So, but Mumbai is one of those quality education promoting and promoters. So what do you see chances in this area, and how can you explore or give some courses or exchange programs or student exchange, or those kind of things? What's your view
Yes,
on it?
yes. In fact, I see excellent potential for exploring so many things. Honorable Minister has highlighted about quality, not quantity. So that's what I would like to see, that we will also have same focus. Let me see how University of Mumbai is interacting with the globe, and accordingly we will come back to for collaborative explorations with different universities in New Zealand. There are certain areas which are, in fact, what I realized, that there are certain areas where early research exchange could have been a point of strong thing. For example, like University of Auckland or other universities, what I see, like advanced material research seems to be another nanotechnology seems to be an area of major focus with many universities in New Zealand. And with University of Mumbai also, we have these two areas which are really stronger. So there probably a stronger research exchange program can be initiated. So let us say the two, since internationalization of higher education is permitted under new education policy, so that will permit, let us say research supervisor in an University of Auckland and a research supervisor in University of Mumbai will have joint students, so that maybe 2 years he could work at laboratory of University of Mumbai and 2 years at University of Auckland in New Zealand. So that's one possibility. With digital mode, of course, through online, one can have a lot of interactions. So it could be a dual degree program in PhD research in cutting areas of research, definitely. What we are doing with the European Union, for example, like we have at University of Mumbai, we have almost 15 different foreign language departments, including German, French, Spanish, likewise. So what those departments are doing, say for example, like every country has special areas of literature. So let us say like some famous writers in New Zealand, or like that is what we are doing right now with French, Canada, France, Canada, or Germany. Like a typical literature which is very famous in Germany is being translated in Indian languages by our faculty members, and vice versa. Like a good Indian literature is being translated in their language. So that gives a good cultural exchange as well. So that naturally we as Indian students get focused to the or exposed to the best literature in Europe. So same thing can be done with New Zealand as well. There could be, say for example, even exchange of internship also. Like the technical programs or skill-based programs will always have a lot of internship period, maybe for 2 to 6 months. So that internship period can be like either at like a student pursuing education in University of Mumbai may be permitted to have an internship for 2 months or 6 months at university, connected university in New Zealand. That's also a possible area. One can have joint PG degree programs also. And say, as I said, like now we have an academic credit bank now. So transferring credits is a very easier issue. So when you are talking about export of education, so we would like to take that benefit in terms of getting those credits through digital mode of learning. The student may not have to move to the New Zealand, but can have education right with any university in New Zealand and can have credits transferred to his credit, say credit bank. So that possibility, feasibility can be easily worked out. And I see there are a lot of common points of research in universities of New Zealand as well as in University of Mumbai. So we are ready for that with the future, in future.
Yeah. I foreknow for the fact that India, New Zealand, they all comes under Commonwealth still, and history of Mumbai University and Otago University, if I'm not wrong, goes back to 150 years when Deepak last visited 8-9 years ago. And we had been to all these universities and met personally at that time to explore a few things around that, how we can do that with India and New Zealand. So definitely there are some, and with this new, as you rightly said, Mr. Kulkarni, that with this pandemic, what we have learned is like, yeah, it can be transferable. We don't have to have a face-to-face education, but can be transferable online and digitally. And certain areas where Indian students still want to learn in New Zealand or Australia or anywhere, if we are providing this platform, then it's a brilliant thing, because there will be lots of genuine requests from students to learn and get that skills upgraded, vice versa. So I see a little bit of hope in terms of what you have created, a platform of digital, of new age tools online, could be benefiting in that area. So, and same thing, I think with Deepak, I was just going through your Akademistan and I saw that you have been trying to do lots of different faculties, courses that you have got under that area of teachers as well. What I could see that there is opportunities for IT sectors, multimedia, creative sectors, which probably was not given enough importance probably, and maybe now more given that highlighting. That could see a lot of collaboration in terms of universities or in terms of institutes from India and New Zealand, vice versa, which can have that online technology to learn the creative aspects. So people don't have to travel, but they can still learn. As we know, there are lots of self-taught tools with the AI coming on and lots of things coming out with advanced technology. I see a benefit if there is a collaboration opportunities. What do you think, Deepak, in that area?
Yeah, Silas, I still recall I had visited some of your universities when I had been to New Zealand. I had been to Auckland University. I had been to AUT, Auckland University of Technology. I still remember we visited Otago University, one of the ancient university, more than 150. You know, some such similar structure we have with our University of Mumbai as well. Then I had been to Lincoln University also. I still recall.
Yes.
Yeah, but Shailesh, I'm still optimist that the whole idea then when I visited was to come up with a MOU sort of collaborations with our good colleges. Those good colleges today have become, some of them have become good autonomous colleges, or some of them have become now universities also in India. That is one good thing which has happened. Another area which we were discussing about, our sir insisted that we have some 15 foreign language departments. Likewise, I would suggest the New Zealand government to come up with a similar setup where our Indian languages are very ancient languages like Sanskrit and Tamil. You can come up with those departments of these languages, of foreign language, so long the New Zealand part is concerned. And we can provide the expertise with respect to the faculties and with respect to the curriculum and the literature and the study material with respect to these languages. Hindi also can be another language, because today Hindi is spoken by, if I have to see the population of India, it is the most spoken language in this part of the world. So Hindi also becomes a very important language for somebody to understand the history of Hindi and the importance of Hindi. If anybody wants to come up with the relations, who want to build relations with India, Hindi, Sanskrit, Tamil, these are the languages which one has to take it seriously to make himself more comfortable. Some of the new age courses we were discussing, Shailesh, that we can have some sort of tie-up Now, of late, these teachers getting registered with Academic Star, I have come up with so many number of teachers having expertise in various fields. And I'm not talking of those conventional arts, science, commerce, or physics, chemistry, biology teachers. I'm talking of those teachers who are teaching the subjects of new age generation. The new age courses which we are talking, it is related with event management. It is connected with sports management. These days, we all are aware IPL has created a buzzword now. And, for IPL itself, if you only consider one cricket as a sport, then you will see in our earlier days, some 25 years back, there was only one coach who used to travel with the team and who used to handle all those non-cricketing activities. These days, the coach is, you have a bowling coach, you have a fielding coach, you have a batting coach, and then you have a physio. So there are so many types of coaches. So almost, to the 15-member team, you have another 15 coaches almost lined up along with this team, and that opens up the opportunity to this in the field of training, in the field of sports management. So sports management is one such area where we as a country are looking forward to get associated with New Zealand. Sports event management, which I was referring, event management, we have so much of opportunity. Moment today the situation is that I am in touch with couple of sports event management organizations. They are telling me that you please give us those graduates who have passed out the course from event management, and the event management courses are now being taken up by our university with their autonomous affiliated colleges, and these autonomous colleges have come up with these types of new age courses. And the situation is such that we produce maybe 1,000 graduates in the field of event management, and the openings are no less than 5,000. So that shortfall and backlog is still with event management. That is another area. Diet and nutrition, that is one more area which these days, everybody talks of keeping himself fit. So you won't come to know whether a professor is a 50-year-old professor or a 25-year-old professor, because he himself keeps so much fit. And the diet and nutrition course, it has been designed by one of the experts in the field of the diet. And that is one Mr. Luke Coutinho. He is the world famous dietitian. And he has also collaborated with our university. Then there is the theatre arts. You are all aware, the film industry, Bollywood is a big area. And we have expertise with respect to the theatre arts and teaching acting and making films. From popular producer, director Ramesh Sippy is also associated with University of Bombay. You all may be aware of Shailesh, you may be definitely aware of the film Sholay.
Just so on that note, Deepak, Michael, I just want...
Recently, our Mr. Sippy celebrated 45 years of making of Sholay.
Yeah, just I want to remind Michael. Michael, you met, if you know, a few years ago, a couple of years ago, you met Dharmendra, the film actor.
Yes, that's right. I do remember.
The most handsome man.
Dharmendra was a popular actor in India. These days he is staying a retired life in Lonavala. It's a hill station close in Maharashtra.
So that movie, which became an iconic movie, which is still today raved about, and it's 45 years on, and it is still one of the best movies, and it still makes me. So that producer director is affiliated with Mumbai University, and we would like to take something on that, like if New Zealand can also enhance the entertainment or the creative art industry to get associated with our universities and do something on a collaborated basis, then it can be a win-win situation.
Couple of more courses, Shailesh, I would like to highlight are those courses in the field of fine arts. In India, again, you have a very historic importance of the fine arts. I mean, as old as, you can say almost 1,000 years. And some of these courses related to fine arts also can be taken up as a part of collaboration with between two countries. As I already mentioned about the languages, we have the world famous Bombay Stock Exchange. So, with respect to the trading and the derivatives, the financial market, this is one area where again our country can provide you our university can provide you the expertise with respect to the stock trading part of
Largest
the
stock exchange.
yeah. And finally, yes, we all discussed about the information technology. There is a huge potential between both the countries, and we today India is also known more as a hub for information technology. Some of the biggest IT companies are Indian companies, be it Infosys, be it Tata Consultancy Services, etc. So all these companies, all these industries are in some way or the other connected with the University of Mumbai, and we can definitely come up with some collaborative program. Academistan can play a very important role in bridging the gap for these two institutes if they think seriously to come up together. That is what I can say, Mr. Wood.
Right. What's your final word on Wood, Mr. Michael? What do you think in terms of, as I was saying, that I would love to see in New Zealand the collaboration with the film industry, with the film association that we have got here in New Zealand, to be some way or some sort of like integrate with the universities to develop courses, to develop enhancement for these creative people. Would be a good opportunity now, since that working together is our program and collaboration is our main focus, how we collaborate and how we work together to make better for this youth, for this, and create employment opportunities as well from that, basically. That's could be a good opportunity to see what Indian counterpart are, what I can see here. They are trying their best to get initiatives, new initiatives on board, same as what we are doing here in New Zealand as well. But how do we bridge that, as Deepak was saying, how do we bridge that? And if we can play some universities, Mumbai University can play a big role, then it would be a good thing in terms of our universities as well. So just on that, what would you say, Michael?
Yes, well, that's a good note to round things off on. As I said earlier, one of the key strategic goals of our system in its most recent 5-year plan has been to strengthen international relationships, because we know the value that can bring to the institutions themselves, but most importantly to the students. And there's actually quite a long and interesting history in this area. And you mentioned before a very long linkage with the University of Otago, and I'd never heard about that before. It's of course it's one of our longest established universities, of course. But also in the 1960s and 70s, as part of the Colombo Plan, New Zealand was very, very engaged with the countries of South Asia, with India, with countries like Nepal and Sri Lanka and others, and having educational exchange. And from time to time, I come across someone who says that their first connection with New Zealand was through a university course that was offered through the Colombo Plan 40 or 50 years ago. And that shows you how enduring some of those connections can be if they are done well. So I think it's an area with great potential. Probably a few things I would say about it. The first is that it needs to be led by the institutions themselves. They need to recognise the value of it and be prepared to engage. And then it needs to come down to relationships, I think, between institutions, because as soon as you get into this area, let's just be really clear, each institution is taking a little bit of a risk in terms of their reputation, in terms of what will be delivered, in terms of what costs might be involved. It's a bit of a step into the unknown, this kind of work. So I think there needs to be probably quite a bit of upfront work at the governance and management level in institutions to develop really robust relationships, to develop a clear set of common understandings, a clear set of common objectives. And then what I would think is extremely important is to be very strategic and to identify what really are the areas in which there can be collaboration on that really do offer benefit. Because you could identify a whole range of areas where you could be collaborating and actually you're not adding much. but each country and each system and each institution will have particular areas of expertise or history or resources that they can bring. So in New Zealand, you think of some of the areas that we are very strong in. Filmmaking, which you mentioned before, is a hugely growing area in New Zealand. Obviously, our agricultural sector and primary production sector are areas in which we have significant expertise, and India has many areas as well. So I think it's about identifying what will really make a difference, what will really drive value, what will really provide something useful to the students who are going to engage in this area. And then on the back of that, and on the back of the strong relationships that you develop between institutions, I think there is great potential to partner. And I think one of the things that gives a great advantage if we're thinking about New Zealand institutions and Indian institutions partnering is we have this very significant and very active Indian diaspora community here in New Zealand. And I think that is a great basis for developing these kinds of relationships. And I think there will be a great appetite there for it once some of the groundwork is done.
Yeah, Michael, we would like to come up together, in some way in the form of collaborations, because some of the MOUs can be signed in various, with the University of Mumbai, with some of these institutes in India who are having expertise in their field, be it finance, be it entertainment, be it, any other area. The University of Mumbai and these institutes in India would be glad to join hands with you guys in New Zealand, and with your universities. I still recall the campus of Lincoln Universities. It was mind-boggling. I think 2,000 hectares. That was the area with the Lincoln University. So I still remember it's a huge campus. Maybe even the Otago University is also having a very rich heritage and very uh, architectural beauty. It is like, our University of Mumbai also having the similar type of beauty. It's a huge campus. Yeah, Shailesh.
Going off, so I started on my mobile, but now I'm back in here. Sorry for the technicalities, some issues. Yeah, no, I heard you, Michael, though. That's what we want. We have a huge Indian community over here, and we have got a huge appetite for, as I was telling that 21 years ago when I came, the population was only about 10, 15,000, but now it's like grown to 250. So it's quite big compared to what I was. So definitely there is a good room of opportunities to explore and to do things now. So yeah, so on that, I would say that we could explore a few things after this conversation. I think with the particularly what initiatives Mumbai University and then AUT and Auckland University and other universities of that New Zealand has got, all the 7 universities in fact. We have got huge potential to do some exchange programs, and which could benefit this generation and the coming generation. That's what I'm looking at, basically. So, and as I said, like, yeah, films, New Zealand is predominantly quite skilled, quite front runners, I would say, in creating things or in taking initiatives and actually we're doing innovative things. So when innovation comes, I think we still, even though we are small, and Deepak knows, we were great fans of New Zealand cricket anyway, since 20, 30 or 40 years ago. We used to watch cricket. So even though we didn't know about New Zealand, we still were connected with the sports. And as you rightly said, sports, films, these things could definitely bring together a lot of collaborations in that regard. So on that note, we definitely have got some options and exploring opportunities. So moving forward, like in terms of going ahead and exploring this, or now is the time where we can put some initiatives or think about it, like how we can put online digitally whatever can be achieved in terms of innovative ways of doing things, as you guys have adopted certain, and we have adopted certain innovative ways. And yes, television, operating television as an educational tool was never thought of, but we did that anyway. So that's definitely, you can learn from us something and we can learn from you something in terms of that, where we can have an exchange programs developed for the students. So just on that now, I think we are almost there. So what's your final word that, do you think this kind of discussions, this kind of dialogues that we have started in terms of our platform to give, so that we bring closer the countries more through digital channel rather than traveling, because traveling looks like a distant now for a while. So I thought this could be a good opportunity to just bring people together and see how we can connect and see how we can explore a few things. And then you never know, we can have those MOUs, those collaborations, and those export of education, those skilled export education and free trade policies can be developed, can be, looked at in certain areas, certain expertise that we can, what beneficial to you and what beneficial to New Zealand and India in that regard. So yeah, I definitely, what do you guys think in terms of this approach of bringing online? Like I started this, I wanted to do it through my media, see how I can bring together these kind of issues and initiatives as a positive approach. So just on that, what will be your final word, Mr. Kulkarni?
Shailesh, let me extend sincere thanks to initiating the conversation. In fact, I extend my sincere thanks to Honorable Minister also, who was very much anxious to know about our new education policy and tried to understand the main features of the new education policy. Thanks to you. So as Shailesh had pointed out, there are many things for exchange. There are certain things which we should learn from you. Like you have very good universities which are ranked, like University of Otago, say it's under top 1% across the globe. So naturally, it's a very good point of foundation to have a quality interactions, maybe in terms of research, maybe in terms of an academics, like sharing credits. So like just would like to move ahead, maybe now digitally to begin with. So there are certain areas where like, for example, like literature, sports, nanotechnology, then health issues. Okay, these are the areas where probably we like to have a areas of research interactions as well as academic interactions with multiple universities in New Zealand. So we are ready for a memorandum of understanding to sign to begin with, and accordingly move ahead for faculty exchange, student exchange, of course digitally only. Right now we'll have more focus on digital because this traveling is not feasible, but at least digital exchange for faculty and student can be easily begin. So since Honorable Minister is here, I think that will happen. That will happen very soon. From our perspective, we are ready at any time. Like in fact, to begin with, like if I as a just breaking the ice, I will say like I will share through email what are probably the areas where like we would like to have an interactions immediately. Share our faculty, and we would like to have certain things which can be availed from different universities from New Zealand itself. So probably like email interactions and that kind of a conversation will with Deepakji being with us, we will move it to the fast track. So the Shailesh, I give a word right now that that will happen from our University of Mumbai on a fast track mode.
Thank you. Thank you. That sounds promising, Mr. Kulkarni, because we were looking forward for also, and it was good that you came along with a short notice as well, since your Vice Chancellor had to attend some other commitments. So I really appreciate your presence, and it's a real pleasure to talk as well. So I move to Deepak. What do you think, Deepak, in terms of your assessment of these conversations that are dialogues that we started? And it was good to see that we had visited education sector a few years ago, and we were talking about education, how we can bring those things together in terms of high level collaborations with universities rather than students or rather than quantity, as Michael pointed out clearly. It was more quality, and we had decided that I think 8 years ago that we wanted quality, which I had pointed out, which we both thought that it should have been quantity over quality over quantity. So, what's your take, Deepak?
Yeah, Shailesh, it is nice talking to you after a long, long time. Let me first congratulate you for your NZ World News Positive. This activity has made you so much positively involved with all the fields, and I'm more happy that you are taking keen interest in the field of education.
Oh, yeah.
It's a great time to talk to Michael Wood as well, because the nation goes forward, the way how the ministers think, and to see the positive approach from Mr. Michael Wood also encourages us to join hands. Some of the areas where I feel India and New Zealand should come forward and promote education, which can help both the countries. Some of the initiatives I have shortlisted, I'll just spell out in a minute or so. With new education policy in the place, as far as our government has opened doors for the international universities to set up their campuses in India, but you need to be in the top 100 universities of the globe. Another area, and some of the courses which can be initiated by New Zealand universities in collaboration with Indian institutions and related institutions in India with respect to Sanskrit, Ayurveda, yoga, culture, diet, nutrition, etc. Some of the Professor Kulkarni also touched upon launching of exchange programs in their own, where both the countries, the students can and the faculties can complete part of the program in their own country and go to other country for completing the other part of the program. This will help students and faculties to take the benefit of the local as well as international qualifications. And finally, I would say, launching of incubation programs also among the students of both the countries in India to promote joint research and development in the various fields. I think Silas, it was a great talking to Michael and great talking to you after a long, long time. In fact, I, as a part of Academistan, would definitely like to play a very serious role in bridging the gap between these two countries. If given an opportunity, definitely we can rise to the expectation of the New Zealand government as well as from the Indian counterpart. That's what I can say, Shailesh.
No, thank you. Thanks, Deepak. Really appreciate that for you to give us that insight. And you also have done very well in terms of promoting this education whole and bringing to the new level. And particularly when we need this sort of thing at this point with the pandemic situation, but even if it was not there, it was still important. Education has always been an important part. So as I always say, like when you have food and shelter, we need the third thing is the education to move and to grow. So on that note, definitely you have built a good reputation in terms of getting the whole education sector into a good situation. And having that kind of insights to us for New Zealand will be a good thing as well. So I'll ask Michael to do the final call and close this conversation that we had a beautiful, and I really appreciate Michael's presence over here. Also, we are over time and he has given his valuable time to us to really appreciate that.
Before Mr. Wood, just before Mr. Wood concludes, and there is one more point, I was going through the details of these New Zealand activities. I was able to see that, Gujarati is the fourth spoken language in New Zealand. So I was also
Yes.
literally surprised by that. So the languages, the languages which I tried to touch upon, you can, definitely add on Gujarati subject as well.
Yes. Yes. Yes, Michael.
Well, thank you. And look, the parliamentary constituency that I represent has within it about 160 different cultures and languages. And someone once said to me that India is like the whole world in itself. And I think virtually every Indian language from north to south you will find spoken somewhere in New Zealand. And we have very vibrant communities from the Gujarat, from Punjab, from Tamil Nadu. We have many Malayalis here, people from Maharashtra, everywhere, and they're very proud of their languages and traditions, and that's something that we try to encourage here. Look, can I thank everyone for making this discussion happen? You, Shailesh, for bringing it together, Mr. Mukadam and Professor Kulkarni. It's been really fascinating to hear from you about your work. It's always interesting to hear from people in different jurisdictions who are often working towards similar ends, but have a slightly different approach because of the different institutional factors and the different cultural factors. And it was extremely interesting to hear about some of the reforms that are happening in your country, and about some of the work that you're both doing to support students to learn and thrive in a rapidly changing environment. I think there's a great deal of agreement that there are good opportunities for collaboration, and that in particular digital tools give us an ability to do that in very innovative ways, and perhaps a little more rapidly than we otherwise would. So look, I would be very hopeful that we can find some opportunities for there to be collaborations between the University of Mumbai and other Indian institutions and some of our institutions here in New Zealand. As I said, at the New Zealand end, it'll need to be driven by the institutions themselves. They have a high degree of autonomy. So I think it's a case of just finding out where the opportunities and willingness are to start developing some of those relationships, and then looking for the areas to really collaborate. And some of those areas we've talked about on this call tonight. So I think there's great opportunity there. And I really look forward to seeing the progress that may evolve there, and very happy to try and help connect people if that would be useful.
Thank you very much, Michael. Once again, I really appreciate your time, and really over time, I should say. But yeah, no, it's good to catch up and also have a conversation started, the dialogue. So I really appreciate all of you attending this conversation and making a real inroad towards moving forward as a positive approach going forward. Let's keep positive and let's be positive about everything that we would like to do ahead. And with that note, thanks once again to all of you, Mr. Michael, Mr. Kulkarni, and Mr. Deepak, for your really input and insights how we can come together. So we are two different destinations coming together on digital note. So it's a good start. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you and namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you
Thank
and
you very
namaste.
much. Thank you.